In the late 1500s, when the oceans were still full of secrets and half the world was drawn in empty spaces on European maps, England was dreaming of empire. Spain ruled the seas, its galleons heavy with silver from the New World, while England remained a small island kingdom eager to prove itself. It was a time of restless ambition, of explorers who believed the edge of the world might hide fortune and glory. Among those dreamers was Sir Walter Raleigh, a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I. In 1584, she granted him permission to explore and claim new lands across the Atlantic for England. Raleigh, a soldier and poet, saw this not just as adventure, but destiny. If he could plant a permanent colony in the Americas, he would secure England's future and his own fame. Raleigh's first expedition, led by Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow, sailed that same year. They crossed the Atlantic and found a chain of islands off the coast of what is now North Carolina. The land was rich and green, full of fish, game, and forests. The local tribes, the Secotan and Croatoan people, were curious and welcoming. The Englishmen returned home with glowing reports and two native emissaries, Monteo and Wanchese, who fascinated the English court. Queen Elizabeth, charmed by the tales, named the new land Virginia, after herself, the Virgin Queen. It was decided that this would be the birthplace of England's first permanent colony in America. The following year, 1585, Raleigh sent his first group of settlers, 108 men, under Sir Richard Grenville and Ralph Lane. They arrived on Roanoke Island, a small forested strip of land between the mainland and the Outer Banks. It was not paradise. Though they built a small fort, food quickly short-ran. The relationships with the local tribes, friendly at first, began to deteriorate. Misunderstandings and cultural clashes led to tension and bloodshed. When Ralph Lane's men killed the native chief Wingina, the fragile peace collapsed. The English found themselves isolated and hungry. Their leader, Grenville, had returned to England for supplies, and months passed with no help. Then, in the summer of 1586, salvation arrived unexpectedly. The famous privateer, Sir Francis Drake, returning from raids in the Caribbean, stopped at Roanoke. The desperate colonists begged him to take them home, and he agreed. They abandoned the settlement. When a supply ship arrived a few weeks later, it found only an empty fort. The first English attempt to colonize the New World had failed. But Raleigh was not a man to give up easily. He believed the next colony must include families, ordinary men, women, and children, not just soldiers. A true English society had to be built, not a military outpost. So in 1587, a new expedition was organized, this time led by John White, an artist and mapmaker who had been part of the first voyage. White's group was made up of 115 settlers, including 17 women and 9 children. Among them was his daughter, Eleanor Dare, and her husband, Ananias Dare. It was a time of hopeful group, farmers, artisans, and families who dreamed of owning land and starting a new life across the ocean. They left England in May 1587 aboard 3 ships. Their destination was Chesapeake Bay, farther north than Roanoke, a place Raleigh's captains believed would be more fertile and secure. But when they reached the coast, their ship's pilot, Simon Fernandez, refused to continue north. His reasons remain unclear. Some blamed bad weather, others suspected mutiny, or even secret orders. Whatever the cause, he forced the settlers to disembark at Roanoke, on the very site of the previous failed colony. The colonists protested, but they had no choice. When they went ashore, they found eerie remains of the old fort. One skeleton lay among the weeds, the bones bleached white by the sun. The rest was silent. Still, they rebuilt. They repaired the fort, planted crops, and established a fragile peace with the Croatoan people on the nearby island of Hatteras. In August 1587, a child was born, the first English baby in the New World. She was named Virginia Dare, the granddaughter of Governor John White. For a brief moment, the colony felt blessed. The settlers imagined that one day her name would be remembered as the beginning of English America. But the supplies they had brought were insufficient. The soil was sandy, the heat relentless, and trade with the local tribes was unpredictable. Within weeks, it became clear they could not survive without help. The colonists turned to John White and begged him to sail back to England for reinforcements. White resisted. He did not want to abandon his daughter and granddaughter, but they insisted. "You are our best hope," they told him. With a heavy heart, he agreed, promising to return swiftly. He set sail in the autumn of 1587, leaving behind 115 souls, men, women, and children, isolated on a wild, unknown shore. He expected to return within months. Instead, war intervened. When John White arrived in England, the nation was bracing for the Spanish Armada, the massive fleet that Spain was sending to invade. Every ship in England, even merchant vessels, was seized for defense. White's pleas to the Queen fell on deaf ears. He begged for just one ship, but none could be spared. He was forced to wait. Years passed. By the time the war ended and ships were freed, it was 1990, 3 long years since he had left his family behind. When he finally returned to the coast of North Carolina, his heart was heavy with fear. As his small rescue ship approached Roanoke Island, he scanned the shoreline for smoke or movement. There was nothing. When he and his men rowed ashore, they found the settlement eerily quiet. The houses had been taken down carefully, not destroyed. The palisade walls were gone. It looked as if the colonists had dismantled everything themselves and moved on. There were no graves, no bodies, no signs of a struggle. Everything was simply gone. Then, White noticed something carved in a tree, the letters Crow. A short distance away, carved in a post, was a single word, Croatoan. Before he had left 3 years earlier, White had told the settlers that if they were forced to move, they should carve their destination into a tree or post, and if they were in danger, they should add a cross above it. There was no cross. White took this as a hopeful sign that his family had moved south to Croatoan Island, home of the friendly tribe that had long supported them. He wanted to sail there immediately. But before he could, a violent storm rolled in, snapping the ship's anchor and pushing it out to sea. The crew, frightened and exhausted, refused to continue the search. They forced White to return to England. He never saw America again. He died without ever knowing what happened to his daughter, his granddaughter, and the colony he had led. The 115 men, women, and children of Roanoke were never found. For centuries, people have tried to solve the mystery. The simplest theory is that the settlers went to live with the Croatoan people, as the carving suggested. Archaeologists have found traces of English goods, metal tools, weapons, and pottery on Hatteras Island, where the Croatoan lived. Some descendants of local tribes later reported that their ancestors had light hair and spoke words of English origin.
Another theory is that the settlers moved inland, following the rivers towards the fertile lands of what is now eastern North Carolina. In the early 2000s, researchers discovered a hidden fort symbol under a patch on one of John White's old maps. Excavations at that location, known as Site X, uncovered fragments of English pottery from the late 1500s. It's possible that some colonists survived there for a time. Others believe the colony fell victim to tragedy, famine, disease, or attacks from hostile tribes. The region was struck by severe drought around that time, and crops may have failed. Some historians even suspect that the settlers tried to sail back to England themselves and were lost at sea.
Then there are the legends, haunting stories that blend history and folklore. One tale says the colonists were cursed, that the forest itself swallowed them whole. Another claims their spirits still wander Roanoke Island, whispering through the pines when the wind blows from the sea. Out of all the colonists, none became more famous than the baby Virginia Dare. Over the centuries, her name transformed into myth. In one legend, she grows up among the Croatoan and becomes a symbol of peace between two worlds. In another, she is turned into a white doe by a jealous witch, doomed to roam the woods forever, pure and untouchable, a ghost of what could have been. Writers, poets, and historians kept her memory alive. For many Americans, she became the spirit of the New World, a symbol of innocence, courage, and loss. In the 1800s, strange stones began to appear in the Carolinas and Georgia, the so-called Dare stones, supposedly inscribed with messages from Eleanor Dare, describing the colony's suffering and deaths. Most were later exposed as hoaxes, but they renewed public fascination with the mystery. Modern archaeologists continue to dig, hoping to find definitive proof. Small clues emerge, a shard of English pottery here, an iron tool there, but no single discovery has ever explained what truly happened. The lost colonists of Roanoke remain lost. Their disappearance became America's first great unsolved mystery, a symbol of both ambition and tragedy. It marked the beginning of England's struggle to settle the New World, a lesson written not in triumph, but in silence. The story of Roanoke is also a reflection of the era itself, an age when the world was vast and unforgiving, when faith and ignorance traveled hand in hand. Those settlers were ordinary people, farmers, carpenters, mothers, and children who crossed an ocean in wooden ships to chase a dream. They built homes, planted seeds, and hoped for a future. And then, one day, they were gone. All that remains of them is a single carved word, Croatoan, and the memory of their courage. Standing on Roanoke Island today, the place feels calm. The trees sway gently in the wind. The sea murmurs against the sand. But if you listen closely, you can almost imagine the echo of laughter, the crack of hammers building wooden walls, the cry of a baby born beneath foreign stars. The lost colony of Roanoke was the first chapter of English America, and its ending was written in mystery. What began as a dream of empire became a ghost story, one that has haunted the United States for more than 400 years. Perhaps the colonists survived and became part of the land they once called new. Perhaps they vanished entirely. The truth remains hidden somewhere between history and legend, waiting for someone to uncover it. But maybe that's the power of the Roanoke story, that in not knowing, it continues to live. It reminds us that America was built not only on discovery and success, but also on disappearance and silence. It began with explorers who dreamed of a future and families who vanished into the wilderness, leaving behind only questions, whispers, and one carved word that has never lost its meaning: Croatoan.